The sensor logs would later be studied by 4 different governments, and every single one of them would reach the same conclusion. The alien ship had not made a mistake. It had done the same thing twice, on purpose, because the first time did not kill fast enough to count as a warning. The Concorde's edge was 17 hours from the border relay when the wormhole tore open ahead of her. Something the size of a small moon fell out of it, already screaming across every channel humans had ever used, and some they had not. Captain Derek Hansen had 4 seconds to decide if that scream was a call for help or a warning of war. He was still not sure which one it was when a second ship came through the exact same spot, on the exact same path, 22 minutes later, and blew up. But that came later. Right now the bridge was quiet and nobody knew what was coming. The Concorde's edge was a mid-sized ship, built for survey work and relay repair, not for war. She patrolled the far edge of human space, near a small station called Aldergate. Most days on this ship were slow. Today was not going to be one of those days. Captain Hansen sat in his chair, half watching a status report when the ship shuddered. Not from an attack, from something tearing space itself open, right in front of them. "Report," Hansen said, sitting up straight. Nathan Price, the tactical officer, was already at his station, eyes locked on the readout. "Wormhole terminus, sir. No gravity warning, no buildup, it just opened." That alone was strange. Every wormhole humans knew how to make or track gave some warning first, a bend in space, a shift in gravity reading something. This one gave nothing. It was just open, and then something was falling through it. "It's a ship," said Megan Ross, the communications officer, her voice tight. "Big one, and it's hurt, venting plasma from at least 6 points." On the main screen, the shape came into view. It did not look like anything built by human hands. Long, curved, dark, with lines of light running across its hull like veins. Parts of it glowed orange where the metal had been torn open. It was tumbling slowly like something that had lost the will to fly straight. And it was screaming. Not a voice, a signal. It hit every channel at once, radio, tight beam, even old frequencies nobody used anymore. Most of it was noise to human ears, but Megan pulled a piece of it apart, cleaning the static, and found something underneath. "It's not random," she said. "There's a pattern repeating like numbers, and under that," she paused. "Under that it sounds almost alive, like someone crying out." Hansen looked at the shape on the screen. Wounded, alone, desperate. "Could be a trap," Nathan said quickly. "Wounded ship, easy target, draws us in close. It's an old trick." "Could be," Hansen agreed. "Could also be someone dying and asking for help." He did not order the ship to fire. He did not order it to run either. "Hold position," he said. "Shields up. Weapons ready, but do not fire unless fired upon. Let's see what it does." The ship did nothing. It kept drifting, kept bleeding light and gas into space, kept sending that broken, painful signal into the dark. Grace Sullivan, the ship's young language officer, had been standing near the back of the bridge, mostly quiet, listening to the raw signal through her own headset. Now she stepped forward, her face pale. "Sir," she said, "I think I heard something in there, a piece I recognize." Hansen turned. "Recognize how? We've never heard this species before." "I didn't say I understood it," Grace said. "I said I recognized it. There's a pattern that repeats every few seconds, right before the numbers start over. It's short. It's simple. And it's placed exactly where a name would go if this were built like a lot of distress calls we know. Like someone is saying, 'This is me, please help me.'" Before Hansen could answer, the ship on the screen jerked. Not from damage, from something new. Space tore open again. It happened in the exact same place the first ship had come from, as if the wound in space had never fully closed. A second wormhole, and out of it came a second ship. Almost a mirror of the first, but whole, undamaged, moving with purpose instead of pain. "Second contact," Nathan shouted, already moving. "Same coordinates, same vector, sir. This can't be an accident." Nobody on the bridge answered him at first. They were watching the screen. The wounded ship did not run. Maybe it could not. The new ship did not hesitate either. It turned, aimed, and fired not at the Concord's edge, not at the humans at all. It fired at the first ship, the wounded one, the one that had been screaming for help only seconds before. The wounded ship broke apart in silence. No sound in space, just light, spreading and fatting, and then nothing but drifting pieces where a ship used to be. On the bridge, nobody spoke for a moment. Megan's hands were still on her console, still holding a signal that no longer had a source. Then the second ship, the one that had just destroyed the first, turned toward the Concord's edge. Hansen's hand tightened on the arm of his chair. "Weapons ready," he said quietly. "Everyone hold steady." But the second ship did not fire. It did not even move closer. Instead, its lights dimmed, one system after another, until it was drifting, dark and silent, just like its victim had been minutes before. "It's powering down," Megan said, disbelief in her voice. "Sir, it's just sitting there." Hansen stared at the screen. A wounded stranger asking for help, a killer that struck without warning, and now silence from the one still capable of fighting. He had a choice to make, and he knew it would not be an easy one. Help the ship that had just killed another right in front of them. Turn away and report what they had seen, and let people higher up decide. Or send a team over and try to learn something that no human being had ever known before. Hansen looked around the bridge. At Price waiting for an order to defend. At Ross still holding a signal with no answer. At Sullivan watching the dead ship's remains with something more than curiosity in her eyes. "Sullivan," he said, "you said you heard a name in that first signal." "I think so, sir. I can't be certain." "Then we go find out whose it was." Hansen stood. "Assemble a boarding team, we're going over." Nobody on the bridge argued. But everyone understood, without needing to be told, that whatever waited on that dark, silent ship was only the beginning of something much larger, and that the 22 minutes between the first ship's arrival and the second one's had not been an accident at all. The airlock hissed as it opened, and Caleb Doyle went in first, weapon raised but pointed low. Behind him came Grace Sullivan, her scanner already active, and Olivia Kane, the ship's doctor, carrying a medical kit heavy enough that she had to sling it across her back. The alien ship was dark inside, lit only by faint strips of light along the walls, some flickering, some already dead. The air smelled strange, thick and metallic, but their suits filtered it clean before it could bother them. "Careful," Caleb said, his voice low. "Bodies to your left." There were more than a few. The crew of this ship had not gone easily. Most were fallen where they stood, curled around control panels or slumped against walls, their strange, four-sided bodies still and silent. Grace tried not to look too long at any one of them. There would be time to study the dead later. Right now, they were looking for anyone alive. They found the survivor deeper in, past a door that had been torn half off its frame. It was not on the bridge, and it was not near any weapon station. It was in a small room, alone, held down by restraints that did not look like they belonged to a normal crew seat. They looked more like a cage. "This isn't crew quarters," Grace said quietly, kneeling beside the restrained figure. "This is a cell." The alien was tall, even lying down, with a body built on 4 points instead of 2 arms and 2 legs the way humans were shaped. Its skin, if that was the right word for it, was covered in ridges that pulsed faintly with color, slow and weak, like a heartbeat running out of strength. Olivia moved fast, running her scanner over the alien's body. "It's alive, barely. Whatever this thing runs on, it's got very little of it left." She looked up at Caleb. "If we're taking it back, we go now." They moved the survivor with care, back through the broken door, past the fallen crew, and into the airlock. Nobody spoke much on the way. There did not seem to be words for what they had just seen. Back on the Concord's edge, Olivia worked fast in the medical bay. hooking up whatever instruments could be made to fit a body that was not built like a human one. Grace stayed close, watching, taking notes, trying to understand a species that, until an hour ago, humanity had not even known existed. It took hours before the alien's colors steadied and its breathing, or whatever process served as breathing, settled into something less desperate. And it took longer than that before it opened whatever passed for eyes and looked, for the first time, at the human standing over it. Grace had spent that time building something out of pieces. Half of it was old human software, built for translating unknown languages using patterns and guesses. Half of it was scraps of tech pulled from the wrecked alien ship, still humming faintly with power. It was not pretty. Wires ran out of a cracked metal case taped to the edge of the medical table. But when she switched it on and pointed it toward the alien, it worked, slow and rough, but it worked. The first thing the device translated was not words, it was fear. The alien's ridges flared bright, fast pulses of color, and the device turned that into a broken string of sound. Help, please, more coming. More coming, Caleb repeated, standing near the door. More like the ship that attacked or more like you. It took a long moment before the alien understood the question, or before the machine understood the alien's answer well enough to translate it. When it did, the words came out slow, but clear enough. Not attacker, hunter of my people. Grace leaned closer. You're not the one who fired on us. That ship, the one that came second, that was not your crew. No, the alien said. That ship my people call. The device struggled here, spitting out sound that did not fit any known word. Grace let it try twice more before giving up and simply nomming it herself. We'll call you Ren, she said gently. Is that all right? There was a pause, then a soft pulse of color that felt somehow like agreement. Ren was not crew of the wrecked ship, it turned out. Ren was cargo, a prisoner. The ship that had died screaming had not been trying to attack anyone. It had been trying to stop the second ship from finishing whatever it came to do. The crew who died protecting Ren had bought time with their lives, just so someone, anyone, might reach human space and warn them. Warn us of what? Hansen asked. He had come down to the medical bay himself once word reached the bridge that the survivor was talking. Ren's ridges dimmed for a moment, then flared again, stronger this time. This is not new. This has happened before, many times, many places. You mean an attack like this one? Grace asked. Not one attack, two, always two. The first strikes. Then, after time passes, the second comes to finish what the first could not and to kill anyone who came to help. Hansen felt something cold settle in his chest. How much time? Ren's answer came slowly, as if counting was difficult in whatever state it was still recovering from. Always the same. Near 22 of your minutes between first and second. The room went quiet. Nathan Price, who had followed Hansen down from the bridge, was the one who finally said what everyone else was thinking. That's not a coincidence. That's a method. Someone built this on purpose. Hansen turned to Grace. Ask Ren how many times this has happened before, to their people. Grace asked, and waited while the device worked through Ren's answer. When it came, Ren's colors dimmed almost to nothing, as if the memory itself was painful to hold on to. 11, Ren said. 11 places like this one. 11 times the first ship came and screamed and was answered, and 22 minutes later, the second ship came and finished it. Hansen looked around the room at his crew, at Caleb, at Olivia, at Grace, at Nathan, and understood, in that moment, that whatever had just happened outside their ship was not the end of anything. It was the start. He was still working out what to say when Megan Ross's voice came sharp and fast over the comm from the bridge. Captain, you need to see this. Sensors are picking up something new, same coordinates as before. She paused, and even through the comm, Hansen could hear the fear creeping into her voice. It's another wormhole, and by my count, sir, it's 21 minutes and 40 seconds since the last one closed. The bridge of the Concord's edge was tense and quiet. everyone waiting for something none of them could stop. Megan Ross counted down the last seconds out loud, her eyes fixed on the sensor readout, and when the number hit 0, space tore open again in the same place it always had. But this time nothing screamed, nothing fired. What came through the new wormhole was smaller than the first two ships, and slower, moving with a kind of care that felt almost cautious. It did not rush toward the wreckage or toward the Concord's edge. It simply drifted into view and stopped, floating there, watching. "It's not attacking," Nathan Price said, though he did not lower his guard. "It's just sitting there like it's looking at something." "Maybe it is," Hansen said. "Maybe it's looking at us." Down in the medical bay, Wren's ridges had gone very still the moment the new wormhole opened, as if some part of the alien could feel it happening before the sensors even confirmed it. Grace Sullivan stayed close, watching Wren's slow, careful breathing, waiting for whatever came next. "That is a scout," Wren said, once the device finished translating the pulses of color. "Small, built to watch, not to fight. It will not attack unless it decides you are a threat." "Decides how?" Grace asked. "By watching, by learning what you are." Hansen, listening through the comm from the bridge, felt a chill at those words. The idea that something out there was studying them, deciding what kind of danger they might be, was not a comfortable thought. But it was better than being attacked outright, and for now, that was something to hold on to. The crew worked fast to piece together the larger story, using Wren's slow answers and Grace's careful translations. It became clear that the Vashiri, Wren's people, were not villains in this story, and they were not the aggressors either. They were the hunted. Some enemy, one Wren could not or would not name clearly, had been striking Vashiri worlds and ships for longer than Wren could remember clearly, using this exact method every time. A first strike to wound or kill, and a second strike, timed perfectly, to destroy anyone who came running to help. It was not chaos, it was a system, built to stop rescue before it could ever begin. "Why would anyone build something like that?" Olivia Kane asked, sitting near Wren's side, checking readings out of habit even though there was little left to check. Wren's colors dimmed, slow and heavy. "I do not know who built it anymore, only that it still runs, still hunts, still counts its 22 minutes every time without fail." Hansen came down from the bridge to stand at the edge of the room, arms crossed, thinking hard. "Your people arrived by accident, chasing that second ship. We arrived by accident too, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That scout out there has no way of knowing if we're friends of yours, enemies, or something else completely." "That is why it watches," Wren said. "It does not know what you are yet. Neither do I." Nathan Price, never one to trust silence for long, pushed hard for caution. "Sir, I still think we pull back. Reinforcements are hours out. We don't know what that scout is capable of, and we don't know what's really controlling any of this." Hansen understood the fear behind those words. He even shared some of it. But he had also seen a wounded ship die trying to warn someone, and he was not ready to turn away from that kind of sacrifice without at least trying to understand it. "Hold position," he said again, the same order he had given twice already that day. "Let's see what it does before we decide what we do." What the scout did, moments later, surprised everyone. Instead of firing, instead of moving closer, the small ship sent something directly into the Concord's edges systems. Not a weapon, but data, an enormous compressed burst of information that hit the ship's defenses like a wave crashing against a wall too small to hold it back. "We're being hit," Megan shouted, hands flying across her console. "Not weapons, it's data, it's huge, it's tearing through our firewalls." Derek Pierce, the ship's engineer, was already moving, diving into a side console to try to contain the flood before it could reach anything critical. "It's not trying to break us," he said, half to himself, half to the room. "It's trying to get through to us. There's a difference." It took several tense minutes of work. Pierce and Ross fighting to guide the massive data burst into a space where it could not do harm, while down in Medical Bay, Olivia Kane kept a careful watch on Wren, who seemed to be growing weaker again under the strain of whatever connection existed between the scout ship and the Vashiri survivor. "Wren," Grace said gently, "can you tell us what this is, what they're trying to show us?" Wren's ridges flared, weak but steady. "Trust. This is how we speak when words fail. Too much has been said in this war with only lies and silence. Now only truth given all at once, too large to twist into something false." Finally, after long minutes that felt far longer to everyone watching, the data settled, decoded, and resolved into a single, massive image on the Concord's Edge's main screen. It was a star map, vast, detailed, covering more systems than Hansen had ever seen charted in one place, and scattered across it, marked in patterns that made his stomach turn cold, were symbols, the same paired strike pattern that had just happened at Aldergate, repeated again and again across dozens of locations. Some of those locations, Hansen realized with a growing sense of dread, were not Vashiri systems at all. Some of them were human. "That's," Megan's voice trailed off as she leaned closer to the screen, tracing one of the marked points with a shaking finger. "Captain, that's inside our own border. That's close to Earth." Hansen stared at the map, at the dozens of marked points spreading like a slow disease across known space, and understood with total clarity that whatever enemy had been hunting the Vashiri for longer than Wren could remember had already been watching humanity too long before today, long before the Concord's Edge had ever crossed paths with a dying ship and its desperate cry for help. The scout ship outside had not been deciding whether humans were a threat. It had been deciding whether they were already marked. The star map stayed up on the main screen for a long time, nobody speaking, everyone staring at the marked points scattered across it like small red wounds. Hansen finally broke the silence. "Pull every marked location near human space," he said. "I want to know how many of these are ours." Derek Pierce worked fast, isolating the points, cross-checking them against known charts. When the results came back, his face had gone pale. "6, sir. 6 marked points inside our border. One of them is Aldergate." "Aldergate is right here," Megan Ross said quietly. "We're sitting on top of one of the marks." Wren, still weak but listening through the open comm link from the medical bay, offered something that felt less like comfort and more like a warning shaped as an explanation. "The marks do not mean an attack is coming today. They mean an attack has already been planned. The enemy does not move fast. It moves certain." "That's not much better," Nathan Price muttered. Hansen ignored the tension in the room and focused on what mattered. "Wren, you said the second strike always comes 22 minutes after the first. Is that number fixed, or does it change?" There was a pause before Wren answered, longer than before, as if the alien were choosing words carefully even through the rough translation device. "It has always been 22 minutes in every account my people have kept. But the enemy learns. If it studies how fast a rescue arrives, it may shorten the gap next time, make it harder to survive." Nathan straightened. "So if we responded faster than expected today, next time it strikes closer to us, it might not wait as long before finishing the job." "That is possible," Wren said, "and troubling." The bridge crew barely had time to sit with that thought before Admiral Olivia Turner's voice came through on a priority channel, sharp and clear despite the distance. The response fleet, coming from deeper in human space, had picked up enough of the earlier signals to know something serious had happened at Aldergate, and Turner wanted answers. Hansen gave them, quickly and without softening any of it, the 2 alien ships, the Survivor, the star map, the marked locations inside human space. Turner listened without interrupting, her voice tight when she finally spoke again. "My fleet is 4 hours out, Captain. We will consolidate at Aldergate and hold the line there until we understand what we're facing." Before Hansen could answer, Ren's ridges flared bright with alarm, and the translation device carried the warning almost before Grace could relay it herself. "No," Ren said. "Do not gather your ships in one place. That is what happened at 3 of my people's strongholds. Many ships together, waiting, thinking strength was safety. The enemy does not care how many ships gather. It only waits for the moment they are together and strikes once, hard enough for all of them." Hansen relayed the warning to Turner, word for word, watching the tension rise on the bridge as he did. Turner's response was not immediate. "You're asking me to scatter my fleet based on the word of an alien we've known for a matter of hours. I'm asking you to consider that we already lost a warning today, Admiral," Hansen said. "The ship that died bringing that warning to us paid for it with its whole crew. I'd rather not waste what they died for." There was a long pause on the channel. Finally, Turner spoke again, her voice a little less certain than before. "Captain Nathan Brandt commands my lead ship. He won't like scattering his formation on a stranger's word." "Then you'll need to convince him," Hansen said. "Because whatever's coming next isn't going to wait for anyone to feel comfortable about the plan." The argument that followed, relayed in short bursts between the Concord's edge and the approaching fleet, was tense and did not resolve easily. Brandt, when he finally spoke directly, was blunt about his doubts, questioning whether trusting an untested alien species over human military doctrine was reckless. Hansen held his ground, backed by Grace's steady translations of Ren's warnings, and by the plain, undeniable fact of the star map still glowing on the screen behind him. It was Ren, in the end, who tipped the argument, offering something none of the humans had thought to ask for. "I can show you how the enemy tracks its targets," Ren said, once Grace explained what was being debated. "Not everything, but enough to know when it decides a strike is worth making and when it does not." That offer changed the tone of the conversation fast. Turner agreed to split her fleet into smaller groups, holding position at a distance rather than gathering at Aldergate itself, ready to respond without presenting a single easy target. Brandt still sounded unconvinced, but he did not argue further once the order came down. Back on the Concord's edge, the mood was tense but focused, everyone moving with purpose now that a plan, however uncertain, was finally taking shape. Grace stayed close to Ren, working through more of the translation device's rough edges, trying to draw out anything else that might help. Olivia Kane monitored Ren's condition, worried about how much strain the alien could take before the effort of communicating became too much. It was Megan Ross who first noticed something wrong with the numbers. "Captain," she said, her voice tight, "I'm picking up gravitational shift at the strike coordinates. Building fast." Hansen turned toward the screen immediately. "How long since the last event closed?" Megan's hands moved quickly across her console, and when she answered, the fear in her voice was impossible to hide. 18 minutes, sir. Not 22. 18. The room went cold in an instant. Ren's ridges dimmed sharply, and even without the translation device, everyone understood what that meant. "It is shortening the gap," Ren said, the words coming slow and heavy through the machine. "It has learned. It knows help came faster than expected. It is adjusting." Hansen felt the weight of every second pressing down on him. The fleet was still spread out, still repositioning based on Ren's earlier warning, not yet ready to respond to anything, let alone an attack that was arriving faster than predicted. "Time until the wormhole forms?" he asked, already moving toward the command chair. Megan's answer came fast, clipped, urgent. "Under 2 minutes, sir. And Captain, whatever's coming through this time, the mass reading is bigger. A lot bigger than either of the last 2 ships." On the main screen, the space above the wreckage of the first 2 ships began to shimmer, distort, and tear open once more. Faster this time. Hungrier. As if whatever waited on the other side had grown tired of waiting its full 22 minutes and decided that this time, it would not give humanity the chance to prepare at all. The wormhole finished forming, and what came through it was not another ship like the first two. It was larger, darker, built with none of the curves the Vashiri vessels had. It moved without hesitation, without any sign of caution, straight toward the wreckage floating near the Concord's edge. "That's not a scout and it's not a strike ship like before," Nathan Price said, voice tight. "Sir, that thing is huge." Ren's ridges had gone almost fully dark, drained from the strain of the last hour, but the alien forced enough strength into one last burst of color for the device to translate. That is the hunter itself, not sent by a mind. It does not think the way we do. It follows old orders from a war that ended long ago. It does not know the war is over. It only knows to strike and strike again until the list is finished. "List?" Hansen asked. "Targets," Ren said. "Worlds, ships, anyone who might have survived to remember what it did. It does not hate you, it simply has not been told to stop." Hansen absorbed that for a moment, the idea that this was not a monster with a purpose, only a machine that had outlived the war that built it, still following commands nobody living had given. Somehow, that made it worse, not better. "Admiral Turner," Hansen said into the comm, "we need everyone in position now. This isn't going to wait for a formation." Turner's voice came back steady despite the chaos. "Ships are scattered as planned, Captain. Brandt's group is closest, 6 minutes out. We won't make it before contact." 6 minutes was too long. Hansen looked at Grace, at Ren, at the crew around him, and understood that the Concord's edge would have to hold the line alone until help arrived, or find another way to stop what was coming. "Ren," Grace said quickly, "you said it works from old orders. Does it confirm its kills somehow? Report back to whatever sent it." Ren's ridges flickered weakly, but there was something sharper in the response this time, something close to hope. "Yes. After a strike, it sends a signal, confirmation of destruction. Only then does it consider the target finished, and either withdraw or begin its search for the next one." Derek Pierce, listening from his console, leaned forward. "If it already thinks a target is destroyed, it won't fire twice. That's why the second ship went for the first, not because the first one survived, but because no confirmation signal ever reached it." "You're saying we fake the confirmation," Hansen said slowly. "Make it think Aldergate and this ship are already gone." "It might work," Ren said. "But the signal is not simple. It must match the enemy's own pattern exactly, or it will know deception and strike again immediately without waiting." Grace and Derek exchanged a look, then got to work, pulling apart what little data they had gathered from the Vashiri scout's earlier transmission, searching for anything that resembled a kill confirmation format. It was slow, difficult work, made harder by the massive hunter ship closing distance with every passing second. "I need more time," Derek said, sweat on his brow as his hands moved across the console. "You don't have more time," Megan said. "It's 2 minutes from firing range." Hansen made his decision fast. "Helm, bring us directly into its targeting path. We're the bait. We hold its attention while Pierce and Sullivan finish the signal, and while the fleet gets here to hit it from the blind side." Nathan Price stood immediately. "Sir, that's suicide if the signal doesn't work in time." "Then we'd better make sure it works," Hansen said, and there was no room in his voice for argument. The Concord's edge moved forward directly into the open, putting herself squarely in the hunter's path. On the screen, the massive ship's weapons began charging, slow and deliberate, exactly the way Ren had described, certain, unhurried, confident that nothing in its path could stop what came next. 30 seconds, Megan said. Derek's hands flew across his console, matching pattern after pattern against Ren's guidance, discarding failed attempts, trying again. Grace stayed close to Ren, feeding every scrap of translated data straight into Derek's work, both of them racing against a clock neither could slow down. 15 seconds, Megan said, her voice shaking now. On Ren's readout, one final pulse of color flared, the strongest Ren had managed in over an hour, feeding one last piece of critical information into Derek's system. "Got it," Derek said, breath-ragged. "Sending it now." The signal went out just as the hunter ship's weapons reached full charge, aimed directly at the Concorde's edge. For one long, terrible second, nothing happened, and Hansen was certain the signal had failed, that the next thing anyone would see was the inside of that weapon's fire. Then the hunter ship's weapons powered down. It drifted for a moment, as if confused, though Wren had already explained it did not think the way living things did. Then, slowly, without any further warning, it turned away from the Concorde's edge, away from Aldergate, and began moving back toward the wormhole terminus where it had entered. Its objective, as far as its old, broken orders were concerned, already complete. Nobody on the bridge breathed until the hunter ship vanished back through the closing wormhole, leaving nothing behind but drifting wreckage and a very shaken crew. It was not a clean victory. Nathan Price had been hurt badly holding a critical system online during the tense final minutes, and Olivia Kane had made a hard call in treating him that she would carry with her long after today. But the ship, the station, and everyone aboard had survived, and that was more than the first Vashiri crew, the one that died screaming a warning nobody understood in time, had ever gotten the chance to do. Admiral Turner's fleet arrived not long after, too late to help, but in time to secure the area and begin the long process of understanding what had just happened. Wren, weak but stable, was offered a choice once the dust settled: attempt a long, likely fatal journey back toward Vashiri space alone, or remain with the humans who had fought to keep this small corner of the galaxy from becoming another mark on that terrible star map. Wren chose to stay. Hansen filed his report late that night, sitting alone in his quarters, the star map still glowing faintly on a secondary screen nearby. Dozens of marked systems remained on it, human and Vashiri alike, each one still waiting, somewhere out there, for a first wormhole to open, and a second one to follow 22 minutes later. But for the first time in longer than Wren could remember, one of those marks had not turned into another silence. It had turned into a beginning instead.